YouTube, welcome back, guys. One of my amazing followers on Patreon had found her and her friend that goes by the name of RPP. She found one of the most amazing articles deep inside the central bank on the website. If you go back to October of 2020, that was when the Maine government drafted their white paper reform plan. That was also about the same time the central bank drafted this white paper economic reform plan. This is their second strategic economic reform plan. The second one went from the year of 2016 to 2020. The first one did. The first strategic plan went from 2016 to 2020. This, what I'm showing you, is their second strategic economic reform plan specific to the Central Bank of Iraq. And you'll see on all the articles that I show you that the year range is from 2021 to 2023. Okay. Now, if you guys are not with me on Patreon, I strongly recommend you consider joining. We do find a lot of articles similar to this. We study them in great detail. We go through them and we find some of the most amazing information and break it down for you to help you get an accurate, in-depth study on this investment so you know where you stand within this investment. Here's the article for you guys and enjoy it. And again, if you're not with us on Patreon, please consider doing it. I'll put a link below the video for you guys. Enjoy the information. Good evening, guys. One of my amazing subscribers on Patreon found this, and her contact found this amazing article deep within the central bank's website. It's their strategic white paper economic reform plan for the central bank level. The government drafted their white paper economic reform plan back in October of 2020. That would have also been around the same time this was drafted. Again, this is the second strategic plan spanning from the years of 21 to 23. You'll see that date range in the upper left corner of each article that we go through. This article also covers the first strategic plan. We're not going to cover that today. Okay, but the first strategic plan went from the years of 2016 to 2020, and then the second strategic plan was drafted around when the Maine government drafted their white paper economic reform plan in October of 2020. So this second strategic plan ranges from 21 to 23. Let's get started in this. Okay. All right. So right here, you guys can clearly see the second strategic plan of 21 to 23.
The second strategic plan, 2021 to 2023. The Central Bank of Iraq launched its second strategic plan for a period of 3 years, 2021 to 2023, represented by 5 strategic objectives consistent with Article 3 of the Central Bank of Iraq Law, which states, achieving stability in domestic prices and working to maintain a stable financial system based on competition in the market, promoting sustainable development, providing job opportunities and achieving prosperity in Iraq.
All right. So here's their methodology, okay?
Based on the importance of strategic planning in drawing the direction of the institution, advancing it and achieving its objectives, Total Quality Management and Institutional Development Department has developed a methodology for preparing the framework of the second strategy of the central bank for the years 2021 to 2023, through obtaining the approval of the governor of the central bank to set the general framework for the second strategic plan, 2021-2023. Forming a committee to develop the framework for the second strategic plan, 2021 to 2023. Make a draft of the general framework for the second strategic plan, 2021 to 2023. Conducting an analytical study of the goals and initiatives contained in the strategic plans of counterpart central banks and distributing them to the bank's departments for the purpose of informing and reviewing them and setting the sub-objectives of the second strategy plan, 2021 to 2023. Conducting a comprehensive study on the analysis of stakeholders, analyzing the internal and external environment of the departments of the central bank and its branches, and making reports of the results of the analysis and distributing it to the senior management of the central bank. Creating special forms for setting standards for each sub-goal and distributing them to the departments of the central bank and its branches for the purpose of verifying the reliability of the sub-goal in accordance with scientific principles and standards, and determining the timeline for implementation and performance indicators for each sub-goal. Holding workshops by the Strategic Planning Division for the departments of the central bank related to setting the sub-objectives of the second strategic plan, 2021 to 2023. The approval of the governor and senior management to launch the second strategic plan, 2021 to 2023.
Okay, here is the vision, the mission, and the shared values.
The vision striving to achieve sustainable economic development and prosperity for citizens. The mission building an efficient monetary policy through general price stability to achieve sustainable growth, building financial sector governance and operating advanced payment systems, applying a prudential control policy by analyzing and evaluating risks, and then improving the performance of the central bank using the best administrative and technical practices that contribute to achieving the goals. Shared value achieving justice and equality, integrity and transparency, teamwork, creativity with work and founding loyalty.
And as you look at these are steps they're achieving right now. Transparency, equality, justice, operating advanced payment systems. Right now you see a lot of articles showing that they're showing you they're advancing to electronic systems for how they're paying like their government employees and officials for their salaries and their pensions and so forth. There's a ton of that in the news. Next article. Here are the first 3 strategic objectives, their strategic goals.
The first strategic objective, support and achieve monetary and financial stability. To support and achieve monetary and financial stability and to enhance the bank's role in taking precautionary measures at the macro and micro levels and to reduce systemic risks. The bank adopt a monetary policy represented by a set of measures and procedures and setting financial soundness indicators that enable the bank to achieve this goal by developing and collecting soundness, analyzing them, monitoring individual indebtedness, analyzing national and sustainable development indicators, preparing emergency reserve sites for local cash, preparing and developing the infrastructure for these sites, and it will also develop and improve methods for analyzing data on monetary policy in a way that enhances the efficiency of its decisions. The second strategic objective, reinforcement and strengthen the banking sector and financial institutions. The development of regulation in the banking sector contributes in the diversifying of banking services and expanding the base of banking activity, starting with supporting Islamic banking activity, establishing and supporting comprehensive banks in order to enable them to grant long-term loans that match the financing requirements of development projects in the economic sectors, and to verify the soundness of the financial conditions of banks and to supervise them in a way that guarantees the soundness of their financial positions and the protection of the rights of depositors and shareholders of the banks in accordance with the provisions of the legislation in force and the rules of governance that established by the central bank, and works to lay down the necessary rules and controls for banks to deal with their customers in a fair and transparent manner in order to enhance their competitiveness and ensure their contribution sustainable economic development. The third strategic objective, promoting digital transformation in the central bank and the banking sector in order to enhance the leading role that the central bank plays and lead to the process of financial inclusion and developing banking infrastructure and electronic payment systems. Advanced methodologies must be developed that contribute to the progress towards achieving digital transformation in the central bank and the banking sector, through the gradual transformation of the adoption of digitization and the adoption of concepts with a technical dimension based on electronic governance in order to organize work and manage tasks, jobs, and events with quality, efficiency and speed, as well as provide infrastructure for information technology and raise the level of performance through the development and improvement of this structure continuously, in addition to strengthening information security and cybersecurity tools being the primary gateway to guarding the sector from attacks, threats, and cyber risks, and embarking on the adoption of modern financial technologies and developing supervisory technologies to contribute to raising the level of response and interaction with the bank's regulatory instructions and regulations in line with the approach of central banks by adopting the best standards and practices.
All right, so here are additional strategic objectives, the 4th and 5th strategic objective.
The fourth strategic objective, developing the organizational structure and human resources of the central bank. The achievement of the strategic objectives depends to a large extent on the development of the organizational, technical, and human infrastructure in the central bank, as the bank continues as an extension of its previous and current plan to rehabilitate and update its formations in accordance with the best international practices to develop its operations and strengthen and complete its structure, infrastructure, and development. The fifth strategic objective, activating and integrating the internal and external relations of the central bank. The central bank is keen to activate joint cooperation with government institutions by taking a set of measures that include activating coordination with these bodies, strengthening external cooperation with international financial institutions, and identifying functional areas that need progress in order to reach a level consistent with the central banks, as well as active participation in conferences and seminars held by those bodies in addition to the conferences held by the central bank regarding the special axes in building institutions and policies, whether at the technical level or policy making, and the conclusion of twinning agreements with the aim of building strong links with international organizations and institutions that perform similar tasks as well. In implementation of its strategic plans, the bank seeks to link the Iraqi banking system within the global system by joining and participating in international institutions in order to achieve an improvement in the level of banking services.
Okay, so here's a graph chart of everything that they strategize and they're working on. It says the first strategic objective, support and achieve monetary and financial stability. And you guys might recognize some of these steps from all the news that you follow. The second strategic objective, reinforcement and strengthen the banking sector, financial institutions. The third strategic objective, promoting digital transformation in the central bank and the banking sector. 4. The fourth strategic objective, developing the organizational structure and human resources of the central bank. Okay, and remember they have recently built and completed a brand new central bank. The fifth strategic objective, activating and integrating the internal and external relations of the central bank. Even on that last, the fifth one, you've seen the central bank traveling places such as in the last few weeks they went to Washington, D.C. So again, they're working on their internal and external relations, internal and external foreign relations. All right, page 25. The first strategic objective, support and achieve monetary and financial stability.
The first strategic objective, support and achieve monetary and financial stability, protecting the financial system, completion of the national risk assessment in accordance with a specific time plan, promoting the use of technical anti-money laundering regulations, promoting financial inclusion, the 1 trillion initiative to finance small, medium, and large enterprises and housing loans. Preparing the national financial inclusion strategy. Payments digitization in the e-learning system. Management of monetary and financial stability. Develop financial soundness indicators in accordance with IMF requirements. Strengthening cross-border risk control. The addition of the Iraqi dinar currency in a BUNA platform for Arab payment. Linking the Iraqi stock exchange with RTGS systems. Salary settlement project. Automate the financial transactions of a specified number of spending of ministries and non-ministry related entities. Finding a secure reserve position for the bank's reserve, the cash of Iraq dinar that received from bank note printing house and the cash of foreign currencies that can be used in the case of emergency situations. Building investment portfolios based in the benchmark and measuring their performance and risks according to modern models. Create sub-accounts for electronic payment service providers from our JP Morgan account. Ensuring a macroeconomic environment conducive to sustainable growth. Building an economic model that contributes to promoting economic growth. Issuing a report on the activity of government and private insurance companies and branches of foreign companies operating in Iraq, extracting and analyzing financial indicators.
Page 26. All right. So this will be the second and third strategic objective.
The second strategic objective, reinforcement and strengthen the banking sector and financial institutions, development of oversight and supervision, monitoring the indebtedness of individuals in the banking sector. Regular classification of important banks, DSIBs. Development of regulation in the banking sector, achieving social development and financial sustainability goals, ESG, reducing environmental risks and achieving sustainable financing. Activating quality management in banks. Banking Quality Award. Guide to the selection of quality advisors in the banking sector. Preparing liquidity accountancy controls, LCR and NSFR, for Islamic banks. Preparing liquidity accountancy according to the maturity ladder for Islamic banks. Controls for the regulation of Tont-Ines. Preparing the regulations for financial leasing activity. The third strategic objective, promote digital transformation in the central bank and the banking sector, completing the development of the technical infrastructure in the central bank and its branches, as well as developing the infrastructure in the banking sector by adopting international best practices and in line with the frameworks and standards of central banks, preparing and implementing the technical infrastructure and data center of the new Central Bank of Iraq building in Al-Jadriyah. Completion of the development of technical infrastructure and the adoption of new technologies for key data centers, disaster recovery centers and branch data centers. Completion of the development of the optical communications network operating with optical cable technologies. Promoting and developing information security, cybersecurity, and data protection, moving to the advanced stage of securing the central bank's technical environment for information security and cybersecurity operational events, developing the tools and systems of the Cybersecurity Management Center, SOC, and adopting an advanced approach to enhancing cybersecurity in the bank and the banking sector.
All right, page 27. Here's a continuation of third strategic objective and the fourth strategic objective.
Electronic transformation of the bank's business and reliance on digitization to implement the functions, events, and operations by obtaining the systems required to cover all the institution's operations in accordance with the best international practices and experiences, access to a sophisticated, CBS, electronic central banking system covering activates and tasks managed at the inside the central bank. Expanding the automation of financial, accounting and operational processes, jobs, and procedures in accordance with business requirements. Adoption of electronic trading tools for transactions and correspondence. The transition to automating the supervisory and regulatory work of the institutions subject to the supervision of the central bank. Adopting regulations and applications involved in working in the areas of governance and risk management. Building a sophisticated and centralized electronic system to follow up on the objectives of managing the central bank's strategic plan, 2021 to 2023. Owning and allocating the enterprise resource management and planning system. Planning, strategy development, and implementation of fintech projects in response to the great acceleration in financial technology around the world, developing a strategy for digital identity, know your customers, KYC, electronically, and the adoption of digital onboarding. Establishing innovation, hub/sandbox. Developing a roadmap for adopting central banks' digital currencies, strengthen governance procedures and adopt relevant frameworks and standards to ensure that the level of maturity required for information and accompanying technology processes is reached. Implementation of governance controls and institutional management of ICT within the central bank and monitoring its implementation throughout the banking sector. Analysis of gaps, comprehensive evaluation of banks' infrastructure, payment service providers, enterprise compliance with frameworks, governance controls, and it-related standards and security. Launching the adoption of cyber resilience controls in the banking sector in accordance with global frameworks. The fourth strategic objective, developing the organizational structure and human resources of the central bank. Central bank branches development, increase the level of satisfaction customers with the bank's branches.
All right, here's continuation of the fourth strategic objective.
Central Bank Human Resources Development, application of ISO 30405:2016, International Standard Clauses for Human Resources Management Recruitment/Guideline. Preparing a functional analysis guide for general, departments and branches of this bank. Continued professional practice development in accordance with the International Standard of Professional Practice of Internal Auditing, 1230. Central Bank Operations Development, Updating, evaluate, and modernizing local legislation in line with the development of international standards. Preparing a guide to anti-money laundering, terrorist financing, and compliance with international sanctions at the Central Bank of Iraq. The transition of oversight work in compliance to a risk-based approach. Improving financial and economic performance by applying international standard, ISO 10014:2006. Evaluation of the purchase process at the Central Bank of Iraq guided by the international standard, ISO 20400:2017. Developing a payment strategy and developing the structure of the payment system. Applying best practices to ensure the health and safety of employees guided by international specification, ISO 45001:2018. Add value to the bank's business by focusing on the bank's strategic and operational objectives by achieving audit objectives. Adopting electronic inclusion in performing the activities of the Accounting General Department for the purpose of reducing paper usage. Digitalization the functions of the oil department, documentary credit reporting mechanisms. Reinforcement and completing infrastructure, building an institutional performance evaluation system in accordance with the CBI's Total Quality Management Standards. Develop a plan for the continuity of the work of technical systems at the Central Bank of Iraq. The establishment of an accredited exam center. Applying the international standard, ISO 17024:2012, for the rehabilitation of the Center for Banking Studies. Use of modern techniques related to audit activity, electronic audit. Establishing and equipping a laboratory to examine local and foreign currencies. Automation all financial operations on bank accounts. Activating trading system for trading bonds and remittances. Development of RTGS system to operate within 24 hours and 7 days of the week. The establishment of faster payment. Linking the Iraqi payment system to the bank's basic operation. The establishment of the National Payments Company and the development of its organizational and technical structure.
All right, here's page 29. The fifth strategic objective.
The fifth strategic objective, activating and integrating the internal and external relations of the central bank. Strengthening the bank's relations and representing it locally and internationally, the bank's contribution to women's empowerment. Strengthening domestic and international cooperation and coordination in the fight against anti-money laundering and terrorist financing. Strengthening institutional relations. Revitalization of external cooperation.
All right, so I want to show you guys something here. I'm highlighting one here for you. It's the top one, the bank's contribution to women's empowerment. Now, look at that for a second, okay? Give me 2 seconds here. I'm bringing something up for you guys that I'd like to show you, okay? On this, okay. All right, I'm going to change the screen view for you right here. Now, it said the bank's contribution to women's empowerment, guys. This just came out. This is from March 3rd. Government of Iraq. This was a tweet. It says, Mohammed Shia commended Iraqi women's leading and constructive role in society during a festival held today, Friday, under the slogan, Earth Women Be Confident. The festival was attended by many women, parliament members, female activists, and the American ambassador to Iraq. And I got more. Here's an article again from March 3rd. Al-Sudani. We have developed plans and programs seeking to provide job opportunities for women. Okay, here's the article for you guys.
Today, Friday, Prime Minister Mohammed Shia Al-Sudani announced the development of plans and programs seeking to provide job opportunities for women. The office of the Prime Minister stated in a statement received by Earth News Agency that the latter saluted the pioneering and developmental role of Iraqi women in society during a festival that was held today, Friday, and carried the slogan, Women of the Earth, Be Confident. Women activists, as well as the U.S. ambassador to Iraq.
And there's one more, another one from March 3rd. PM, the Prime Minister, we will not back down on defending women against all forms of violence. So as you see, they're really empowering women and creating a level of inclusiveness to promote them and empower them more. Here's this last article.
Al-Sudani affirmed today, Friday, that the government will not back down in defending women against all kinds of violence. The media office of the Prime Minister said in a statement received by the Iraqi news agency, INA. The Prime Minister, Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, saluted the pioneering and developmental role of Iraqi women in society, during a festival that was held today, Friday, and carried the slogan, Women of the Earth, Be Confident. The presence of a number of women ministers, members of parliament, and a group of activists, as well as the U.S. ambassador to Iraq, was witnessed. Al-Sudani mentioned, according to the statement, I am pleased to be present here to participate in this distinguished and qualitative festival that aims to support and empower women, noting that, the government's vision and understanding of the role of women in society was present in its ministerial curriculum, in fairness to it, and in recognition that building society begins with it, and ends with it. He added, the empowerment of women is a process that lays the foundation for its launch so that it takes the central role that befits it, in all aspects of work in which it has proven its presence, with its capabilities, explaining that we supported a campaign, 16 Days to Combat Violence Against Women, as a strategy based on a curriculum that lays down the principles and legislation for the protection and care of women, and exercises their role in contributing to sustainable development. He continued, I assure them on their day, our Iraqi women, that we will not back down in defending women against all kinds of violence, and we will support every legislation, law, or general principles that defend women, regardless of the type and source of the threat to them, adding, we have developed plans and programs seeking to provide opportunities work for women, and distance them from the specter of unemployment, and this came in our government program, especially with regard to sponsoring and caring for widows and divorced women. And he added, our government is proud today that it witnesses a significant number of women as they stand up to leadership in all its executive and legislative aspects, noting that, at the executive level, there is no field without women, starting from ministries, down to the smallest responsibilities, which has not been witnessed in any country.
There you go, the bank's contribution to women's empowerment. And all of that was from March 3rd, which was yesterday, Friday. Moving forward. All right, page 30. So on this one, strategic planning teams and implementing mechanisms. Here's the article.
Strategic Planning Team Implementation Mechanisms Team Members, Staff of Strategic Planning Division/Department of Total Quality Management. Strategic Plan Framework Building Committee. Implementation Mechanisms, developing a strategic framework and formulating strategic plans. Update strategic and annual plans with the possibility of adding, deleting or modifying strategic objectives, programs, and options. Obtain the approval of the Governor when modifying strategic objectives. Preparing a model for the drafting of the strategic and operational plan and follow-up reports. Preparing a guide to model procedures for the drafting of the annual plan. Preparing comparing studies with the international and regional central banks. The responsibility, coordination of all inputs from the department part of the preparation process for quarterly and annual reports to senior management. Quarterly reports to senior management and presented to the board of directors. Distribution of quarterly and annual reports to third parties.
All right, next article for you guys. That was page 30. Here's 31. This is the last article in this, guys. Strategic Plan Coordinators. Here's the article.
Strategic Plan Coordinators Team Member. Member of each of the bank's departments and is connected with the strategic planning team implementation mechanisms, update annual plans, programs, and options after obtaining department's approval and in coordination with the primary strategic planning team. The responsibility, submit a quarterly report to the department's officer who oversees it. Following up the annual plans and the level of implementation with updating them. Follow up the implementation of sub-objectives in their departments and provide the planning team with results quarterly.
Guys, thank you for joining us to study things like this at a much deeper level, along with just finding amazing information like this. We have some of the most information we find. We've pretty much identified everything Iraq is working on right now. It's amazing the things we find. Please consider joining us at Patreon. I'll put a link below this video for you to find us and join us. You guys are the best. Take care and have a wonderful afternoon.